Give him a second. You're all set.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. We're going to be led in the Pledge of Allegiance by Mr. Walker.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And let's take time out for a few moments of meditation upon all the people who are suffering in the world. Thank you.
Thank you. Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Ms. Burton? Ms. Green? Here. Dr. Henderson? Mr. Howard? Here. Mr. Levenstein? Here. Ms. Maida? Here. Ms. Mineo?
Here.
Mr. Stridiron? Here. Mr. Walker?
Here.
Be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby recesses into executive session for the following purpose. Matter made confidential under FERPA, employment history of particular individuals, matters leading to the employment of particular individuals, the review of programs and placements of students with disabilities, collective bargaining under the Taylor Law, NASA, NTA, discussion regarding current litigation, LB versus NECSD, and to obtain advice from legal counsel. I'd like to entertain a motion, please.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Green?
Yes.
Dr. Henderson? Mr. Howard? Mr. Levenstein?
Yes.
Ms. Maida?
Yes.
Ms. Mineo?
Yes.
Mr. Stridiron?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Ms. Burton?
Thank you. We'll be back in a while. Sorry, we're a little bit late. We're going to public comments on agenda items. No one has signed up for public comments on agenda items tonight, so we're going to move on to our interim superintendent, Mr. Forget. You signed up for non-agenda items. Okay, both people. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. This evening we have a few resolutions. The first one is a resolution to approve the 2022-2023 Newburgh Free Library proposed budget.
I'd like to entertain a motion, please.
Second.
Questions or discussion? No questions. Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Howard? Mr. Levenstein?
Yes.
Ms. Maida?
Yes.
Ms. Mineo?
Yes.
Mr. Stridiron?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Ms. Burton?
Yes.
Ms. Green?
Yes.
Okay.
The next item is a resolution to approve the food service budget for the 22-23 school year.
I'd like to entertain a motion, please.
Second.
Questions or discussion on food service budget? Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Levenstein?
Yes.
Ms. Maida?
Yes.
Ms. Mineo?
Yes.
Mr. Stridiron?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Ms. Burton?
Yes.
Ms. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Howard?
Yes.
My next item is a resolution to approve the Newburgh Enlarged City School District General Fund budget for 2022-2023.
I'd like to entertain a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Questions or discussion? Yes, Mr. Stridiron.
So the final budget for the district, how many teaching assistants or what level of teaching assistant increase is in this proposed budget? Like how many can we get for kindergarten through third grade?
The general fund budget has no change in the teaching assistants. Where we leveraged increased teaching assistants was in the American Rescue Plan funding that we talked about with the federal stimulus money. That's where we were increasing the number of teaching assistants. And correct me if I'm wrong, I need help, Ms. Peterson or Ms. Moriarty, I think it was 19 that we put into the ARP.
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
So with 19, that'll get us maybe half of first grade, because we have kindergarten coverage now for every class. So that's half of first grade. And I do have another question, but I'll wait to see if anybody else has.
Some have questions, some first grades have already aides, correct?
Not at this time.
Okay. Mr. Levinstein, and then I'll get back to you, Mr. Stritter.
So the proposed hires, I guess, that are on here, at some point, we're going to have to add to this budget, correct? Both in revenue and expenses to accommodate that?
Are you referring to the positions under the HR agenda that we're adding this evening?
Yes.
They are being added and being compensated under a federal fund, American Rescue Plan. So they will be paid for out of federal fund, not the general fund budget.
I understand that, but there's many items in this budget that are paid with those funds, correct?
In the general fund budget,
In the budget that we're voting for tonight.
those positions are not in the general fund budget. Maybe
Okay.
I'm not understanding your question. I'm sorry.
So my question is, sometimes when we add positions or we get additional revenue, we go and we revise the budget that we're in to accommodate the additional revenue and the additional expense. That's what I'm saying. At some point, if we okay those positions, that we need to, this budget will be revised to accommodate that, meaning.
It may not be to accommodate that, but it would be to adjust based on the additional revenue we receive.
To adjust, that's what I'm
Right.
saying, to adjust additional revenue and additional expense.
We would rethink and take a look at things and decide what we would put into there. Right now, those are guaranteed positions paid for out of a federal fund.
I understand. Thank you.
Mr. Stritter.
Thank you, Madam President. So how much, or if any, of the reserve fund is being used in this budget?
Mr. Goldbeck?
Total of $500,000 is being appropriated towards the levy.
So
I
we're using.
can pull a little more detail on that for you in a
Oh, yeah,
minute.
that's a close number. That's fine. I don't need exact. But so has there been any change with the approval of the budget from Albany, or we don't have an approved budget from Albany, so that number could change?
The final budget we received from Albany, I believe it was on April 9th, we took into account that budget, and that's how we made some adjustments. So there's been no change based on what we shared with you with regards to what's in this budget. Where we shifted was lines between the revenue. Do you want to talk a little bit about those shifts that we made, Mr. Goldbeck?
Question again, I'm sorry.
Yeah, based on the numbers that we worked on last week, can you share the reserves and the changes that we made last week to the revenue?
Sure. Well, on the revenue, we didn't make really any changes. Our revenue budget included, I'm pulling it, hang on. $185,500,000 in state aid. That's solid. So that's exactly what we put in.
Did we adjust what we expect to receive from transportation aid?
We adjusted that in order to verify the number of the 185.5. So it enabled us to understand that the $185,500,000 would be a good number going forward.
Thank you.
And as far as the specific reserves, we're appropriating $100,000 from the workers' comp reserve, $100,000 from the unemployment reserve, $100,000 from the ERS reserve, and $200,000 from the teachers' retirement system reserve. Our expectation is we will generate enough fund balance at the end of this current year to fund the difference back into those reserves. So we'll be starting out with enough money to cover that in the off chance that some of that would have to be spent.
Go ahead, Mr. Stradar.
If there's an increase in transportation costs after the budget is approved, where does that money come from?
Well, our hope and expectation is that we've budgeted enough money to cover any increases that we might see. Obviously, none of us can predict the future, so the budget isn't a dollar for dollar matched with expenditures. We expect to have some extra money in the budget for things like that. We don't know what heating fuel is going to cost or how much we're going to use. There are a lot of unknowns in the budget itself, transportation being one of them and high among them right now. But our expectation is that we've budgeted enough to cover our costs there.
Any other questions on this item? Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Ms. Maida? Yes. Ms. Mineo?
Yes.
Mr. Stridiron?
No.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Ms. Burton?
Yes.
Ms. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Howard? Mr. Levinstein?
Yes.
My next item is a resolution to approve the property tax report card for 2022-2023.
I'd like to entertain a motion, please.
So moved.
Questions or discussion on this item, please? Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Ms. Mineo?
Yes.
Mr. Stridiron?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Ms. Burton?
Yes.
Ms. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Howard? Mr. Levinstein?
Yes.
Ms. Maida?
Yes.
Thank you, Madam President. That concludes our items.
Thank you, Mr. Forget. We're going to move on to board committees. Curriculum and Instruction Committee, Mrs. Maida.
Thank you, Madam President. We have several resolutions that you see on our agenda this evening. Conference requests, field trips, a new club, and exciting partnerships with Syracuse University and Alfred State. Our presentation for our curriculum and instruction was Mr. Forget and Mr. Augustero's presentation on curriculum textbook and pilot adoption protocol, which would make a standardize the process throughout our district. I'm so sorry, and involve stakeholders to ensure shared decision-making. And I think we'll be hearing more about that. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you. We're going to move to exceptional learners. Ms. Burton.
Thank you, Madam President. Exceptional Learners Committee met on April 6, 2022. Agenda items included 2 resolutions for your consideration on tonight's agenda to approve the authorization funds to implement special ed programs and services and to enter a consultant agreement with Power of Movement. Additional presentations and discussions included the regional partnership, which provides direct training and support to families, approved preschool and school-age programs, public schools and districts, and community partners. The Regional Partnership Center involvement with Newburgh Enlarged City School District includes working with NFA's 5-1 program, MTSS process at South Middle School, walkthrough protocols, and disproportionality. The Anderson School Collaboration will be providing training for autism. And lastly, we had a wonderful presentation from our speech language pathology department, which gave us a deeper understanding of the role and responsibilities of the 19 speech language pathologists providing services to 800 students in our schools throughout our school district. And we also learned what they do, but not only what they do, but how much they accomplish. And what they do and accomplish is they offer more than 750 sessions a week and as much as 31,000 speech sessions annually. So I really want to give a heartfelt thank you to Chris Bear and his entire team of speech language pathologists who are key players in pre-K, elementary, secondary schools, focusing on working across all levels, providing and helping students with a wide range of speech, language-related problems to meet performance standards. So, Madam President, thank you for the opportunity to highlight our Exceptional Learners Division. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Burton. I'm going to talk about the Personnel Committee. All of the items discussed at the Personnel Committee are here on this agenda for tonight's meeting. And right now, we're going to move to my section, and that is a standing thing about the superintendent search. Dr. Monica Brown is going to be joining us via Zoom, I think. WebEx. So she'll be on in a moment.
Bring her in.
Hello.
Welcome, Dr. Brown. Would you like to begin?
Sure. I'm Madam President. I'm giving the update from tonight. I mean, a report on the search so far. Correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Matthew, can you share the slides that can I do it from here?
Only could be on one screen, so it's behind you.
It's
Yes,
up
it's
on the
shared,
screen.
ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay. So, what I wanted to do is, first of all, say that on behalf of Ed and I, we have truly enjoyed meeting many of the candidates and reviewing the information. The application deadline was Friday, April 15th. So we've been very busy reviewing applications and submitted materials, interviewing candidates, and really coming up with some the people to interview, because there's some great people who have applied. What I wanted to do is give you a quick summary of the demographics of the candidate pool. First, to take a look at the current positions. I'm not sure, can you see the graph on the screen? I just can't see what you see.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so as you can see, we have 24 superintendents or assistant superintendents. By the way, there were 45 total applications in our system. A couple weren't finished, so you'll see that our numbers don't always add up to 55 if someone didn't indicate a certain part of the application. But we had 24 superintendents or former superintendents, 14 deputy superintendents, 4 directors, 7 principals, 2 people from charter schools, charter school directors, and 2 consultants. As far as the states that were represented, that's the next slide. New York by far was the most represented state, which is pretty typical, with 26 out of the 45 applications. New Jersey with 4, 2 from Maryland and Tennessee. The rest on the screen, we did get 1 application each: Michigan, Massachusetts, Oklahoma, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, California, Utah, North Carolina, Illinois, and Virginia. And finally, as far as demographics are concerned, as far as the earned doctorates in the group, they're pretty split. 23 of the 45 have their doctorates, 22 do not. So that is the split there. Are there any questions on the demographics before I move on for the plans for the upcoming weeks?
Board members, Ms. Green, go ahead.
I am so sorry, that came across as I could not hear it.
Try now.
Okay. I was just wondering, in terms of the breakdown, male and female, we didn't have that.
Oh, that's a great, I am so sorry. I did not do that breakdown. I can do it. I know that we did have a pretty substantial number of female and male candidates. You know, it was pretty evenly split, but I can absolutely get that to you. I apologize. That's one I should have put up on a screen. I just have to look through them by hand. So, I mean, not by hand, but on the, so they don't indicate it on their application. So I have to do my best by guessing for each one.
Any other questions, ladies and gentlemen? There are no other questions from us, Dr. Brown.
Great. Okay, so as I said, Mr. McCormick and I are very excited about some of the candidates who have applied for the Newburgh position. And what we're doing right now is really narrowing those down for the plans for the upcoming weeks. As you remember, during our planning meeting, we did agree to meet on April 30th for the first round of interviews. We will begin at 8 o'clock, going through our interviews, finishing before 5 with a process that Mr. McCormick and I will facilitate that narrows the candidate pool down from those interviewed to come to the second round, which will be on May 7th. The times for those are to be announced, given the number of, which will be determined based on the number of people you decide to bring back. In preparation for April 30th, I am going to be sending all of the board members a draft script of questions, and it is just a draft. You will be asked to, excuse me, I'm so sorry. You'll be asked to revise or make any additions to the script by the 28th, and then we will put it together for the 30th. So as I said, Ed and I have been using the desired characteristics and leadership profile to screen the candidates. And we very much look forward to seeing you all at the interviews on April 30th. Are there any questions?
Any other questions, board members? No? So we'll be happy to see you and Mr. McCormick on the 30th. And before that, we will be receiving questions. And please, if board members, if you have any additions or deletions, please respond so that we can have input into the questions. So thank you very much, Dr. Brown. Have a lovely evening.
You too. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. We're going to move on with our agenda. We're going to move on to our Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction Elementary, Mrs. Moriarty.
Thank you, Madam President. Elementary Curriculum and Instruction presents one item for your approval this evening.
I'd like to entertain a motion, please. Second. Questions or discussion? There's a
No.
okay. Thank you. Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Stridiron?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Ms. Burton?
Yes.
Ms. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Howard? Mr. Levinstein?
Yes.
Ms. Maida?
Yes.
Ms. Mineo?
Yes.
Thank you, Madam President. That concludes my items.
Thank you, Mrs. Moriarty. We're going to move on to our Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction Secondary, Mrs. Soto.
Thank you, Madam President. The Curriculum and Instruction Division presents to you agenda items 7.1 through 7.4 for the board's consideration and consent.
Would any member like to separate out any of these items? Okay, I'd like to entertain a motion, please. Questions or discussion? Yes, Mr. Stridiron.
On item 7.1, I just want to make it clear to the public the answer. Will Dr. Badia be presenting at the conference for Big Picture Learning?
Mr. Stridiron, Dr. Padilla will not be presenting at this conference. He is not affiliated with Big Picture, nor is he affiliated with Big Bang Conference. You're welcome.
Board members, any other questions or comments on these items? Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Ms. Burton? Yes. Ms. Green? Yes. Mr. Howard? Mr. Levinstein?
Yes.
Ms. Maida?
Yes.
Ms. Mineo?
Yes.
Mr. Stridiron?
Yes.
Thank you, Madam President. That concludes my items for this evening.
Thank you, Mrs. Soto. We're going to move on to our Assistant Superintendent for Exceptional Learners, Mr. Bayer.
Thank you, Madam President. The Exceptional Learner Division has 2 items on the consent agenda for the board's consideration.
Would any member like to separate out any of these items? I'd like to entertain a motion, please.
Second.
Questions or discussion? Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Ms. Burton?
Yes.
Ms. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Howard? Mr. Levinstein?
Yes.
Ms. Maida?
Yes.
Ms. Mineo?
Yes.
Mr. Stridiron?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Thank you. That concludes my items.
Thank you, Mr. Bayer. We're going to move on to our Assistant Superintendent for Finance, Mr. Goldbeck.
Thank you, Madam President. This evening, we have 3 items for board consideration as consent items, items 9.1 through 9.3.
Would any member like to separate out any of these items? I'd like to entertain a motion, please.
Second.
Questions or discussion? Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Ms. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Howard? Mr. Levinstein?
Yes.
Ms. Maida?
Yes.
Ms. Mineo?
Yes.
Mr. Stridiron?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Ms. Burton?
Yes.
Thank you, Madam President. That concludes our items for this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Goldbeck. We're going to move on to our Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources, Mr. McLemore.
Thank you, Madam President. On the Human Resources agenda, I have items 10.1 through 10.
These items. So, I'd like to entertain a motion on all but 10.1D1 and 10.11. Am I correct, Mr. Stridiron?
Yes.
Thank you. I'd like to entertain a motion on those items.
Second.
Questions or discussion on those remaining items? Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Howard? Mr. Levinstein?
Yes.
Ms. Maida?
Yes.
Ms. Mineo?
Yes.
Mr. Stridiron?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Ms. Burton?
Yes.
Ms. Green?
Let's move on to 10.1D1, please. I'd like to entertain a motion. Questions or discussion? Yes, sir.
So the board received an email about 2 or 3 weeks ago. Does this person here on D1, is that the same person that is in the email that we received?
We're not sure of what you need.
It's an email from someone from another school district.
Oh.
Just-
That's not a public discussion, so we would go into executive session to discuss that. We can, excuse me, sir, or you can table it till later in the meeting, and then we can go after we'll go into a second executive.
I would like to table 10.1D1 for later.
Okay, I need a second. Thank you. Roll call to table, please.
Mr. Howard? Mr. Levinstein? Ms. Maida? Ms. Mineo?
Yes.
Mr. Stridiron?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Ms. Burton?
Yes.
Ms. Green?
We're going to move on to item 10.11. I'd like to entertain a motion, please. Anybody second? Questions or discussion on this item? Yes, sir.
So I understand the need for improving the guidance departments and the structures for the guidance department. What I don't understand is if it was a great discussion before about this whole issue. I wish that discussion would be in the public. So can we get some information as far as the history of this position, what other description it was under, and how this position would be implemented?
So With respect to how we got to the particular position of our Director of Guidance and Data is one of your questions? Okay, so we previously had a Director of Guidance. We previously had a Director of District Data. And we are, at this point, recommending to bring back both of these positions, but combining them into one. And Ms. Peterson can talk to you about the specifics of what that position will be.
Ms. Peterson?
So post-COVID, we see the increased needs of social emotional learning throughout our district. We are also in the process of implementing a MTSS program that has 3 different tiers. Tier 1 is a comprehensive plan, guidance plan that is supposed to be administered to all students K-12. And tiers 2 and 3 are more community-based services for students with higher needs. What we're seeing currently is that we need some support around our Tier 1 program. Our school counselors need support in developing and bringing out a Tier 1 program for students and families around college and career readiness, academic planning, and also support to teachers and around behavior and other academic concerns that we're seeing in the classroom. We feel that this position will support record management, college application, and post-high school planning, as well as recruitment efforts for our students and for just getting our students to to college from our post-secondary planning, excuse me.
Go ahead, Mr. Stradone.
So who currently supervises the guidance team at the high school, right? It's pretty much the only guidance counselors we have.
Right. Mm-hmm. So currently our guidance department is overseen by our Director of Pupil Personnel, and as you can imagine, that is a very broad role. So we really would like to see a focus on Tier 2 and 3 for the Director of Pupil Personnel to really concentrate on social emotional learning as well as community connections for Tier 2 and 3. We've done a lot of different things in the district, the interagency collaboration where we bring in community supports to support our students and our family, and we would like to strengthen and deepen that work and have that be the focus of the PPS Director and for the Director of Guidance to really service the guidance program and building for our professionals and for our students.
Ms. Peterson, could you confirm, we have counselors in elementary schools now as well, though.
We have, it's K-12, and you have supported and actually asked us as a senior team and as a department to expand our pupil personnel. Any expansion of personnel needs oversight and needs administration. So we've increased social workers, and I think, Mr. Bear, if you could correct me, we've expanded to close to 20 social workers, correct, currently in the district?
It's 21.
21, and we've expanded an additional 3 school counselors, so that's more oversight and professional development that we have to give those individuals, and that's a very large load for one individual.
Just one more thing, we are looking to add 2 more social workers through ARP, so it'll be 23 by the time school starts in September.
Thank you, Mr. Bear. I'm going to go to Mr. Howard first, and I'll come back to you.
Thank you, Madam President. So as this position was explained in the back, and also how Ms. Peterson has so eloquently explained it out here, I thought, as I said before, this provides an opportunity to fill a gap for children that, believe it or not, we have a large population of students in our district that don't come from 2-parent households, that don't come from households where parents can advocate and let kids know what is after high school, what's on the vista after school. And the way this position was explained in the back, it filled that gap. And if you care anything, as a district, if we care about those kids, and the reality is, kids are falling in the gaps. We make assumptions that aren't necessarily true. A lot of kids do not have advocates at home. If you approach some of the kids in our buildings in high school, and I did it, I've done this, some of our freshmen and sophomores know nothing about PSAT. They don't know what it is. They don't know what opportunities are out there. And the conversation that I have with the kids, a lot of them say they can't afford it. They don't think they have the money to pay to take some of these tests. But a position like this would fill that gap. That's the way it was explained to me in the back. So I think it's something definitely that we need in our district, understanding that everyone does not come from a two-parent, college-educated, or even a knowledgeable household that can advocate for kids. We need to do that.
Back to you, Mr. Stridiron.
I understand what Mr. Howard's saying, and I agree that there are certain kids that don't have the help that they need. But if the students need direct contact, you don't hire a director. You hire people that work at the level with the kids. So I would rather use the funding for this position to hire people that will work with the kids. So I just don't think we need more levels to get to the kids. We need more people close to the kids.
Thank you, Mr. Stridiron. I understand that the greatest opportunity you have to impact the life of a child is to get as close to that child as possible. But I also know that when we've increased the number of pupil personnel staff that we have in the district, with the numbers of social workers, the numbers of counselors, the numbers of psychologists, you do, in my opinion, you do need someone to coordinate their efforts and to work with them and to ensure that they have opportunities for capacity building and sharing and pulling people together to facilitate conversations around how they can teach each other those works. Those things just don't happen naturally. Those things happen by an intentional leader who works together to pull these people together to do those things and to prepare an agenda and to teach and coordinate. So you have to have leaders to help and assist and guide and support the teachers, the counselors, and social workers. It's got to be a balance. And based on the numbers that we've increased of our PPS staff, we're asking for consideration of the board to allow a director to work with these people to get the greatest amount we can in the best interest of these kids. That's why we're asking for this position. And as I said earlier, we're opening a new Career and Tech Education Center. The Career and Tech Education Center needs to be highlighted at an early age. These students need to learn. It's not just about college. It's also about trades that you can learn. You can walk out of NFA and you can go into cosmetology. You can be a barber. You can be an electrician. You can be a welder. But we have to teach these kids that there's an opportunity for them when they're in 5th grade to think and aspire to be that. And that has to happen, and that has to be coordinated. And a guidance counselor from the high school doesn't have the time to go down and work with the principals and to work with the kids that are in 5th grade. We need a director that can go down and work with the students and work with the principals and assistant principals to begin to teach aspirations for high school and college and high school completion. So although I do agree, you change the life of a child as close to the classroom as possible. In order for those individuals to do that work really well, I believe you need leaders. And this is a leader that can help us do that.
Mr. Stridiron?
So you got another director. Who's the support staff that's going to help the director prepare all the documents? Are you going to hire another set of support staff for the director, or are they going to now take whoever's director of personnel services, is that person now going to do the support work for 2 directors?
We have shared support staff that are cross-trained, that work together to do this work. We don't at this particular time feel the need for an additional support person just to work specifically with the Director of Guidance. We believe that the supports that we have currently will be able to do the work with the Director of Guidance.
Board members, any other questions or comments on this item? Yes, Ms. Burton.
So just to add on to the question that Mr. Stridiron asked, I would hope that you would watch that carefully in terms of the workload for that person, whoever that person or persons are, because exactly what you said in terms of, the CTs, building up and running and all these multiple trade opportunities. This person is going to also have to have some hands-on conversations and engagement in the community. And, as I said earlier to a group of you all, the library offered a wonderful program this morning in terms of workforce development and had key state people here. This person has to engage with what's emerging beyond the city of Newburgh, because part of that conversation is where are the jobs, right? And so not only are we building the workforce, we also have to make sure the work is here. And so that is also a key. I would think that would be a key role of this person as well. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on this item? Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Levinstein?
Wait, Mr. Howard?
No, go ahead.
You sure?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Mr. Levinstein?
Yes.
Ms. Maida?
Yes.
Ms. Beneo?
Yes.
Mr. Stridiron?
No.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Ms. Burton?
Yes.
Ms. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Howard?
That concludes my items, Madam President. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McLemore. We're going to move on now to the Clerk of the Board, Mr. McCoy.
Thank you, Madam President. I have the two agenda items, the approval of the minutes from March 22nd and some additional inspectors for the election coming up on May 17th.
Would any member like to separate out any of these items? I'd like to entertain a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Questions or discussion? Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Ms. Maida?
Yes.
Ms. Beneo?
Yes.
Mr. Stridiron?
Yes.
Ms. Walker?
Yes.
Ms. Burton?
Yes.
Ms. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Howard? Mr. Levinstein?
Yes.
There's still time to run for the board if you're interested. The candidate packets are due back in the office of the district clerk by April 27th, which is next Wednesday at 5 o'clock. Don't worry, Ms. Green, you're still on the board. The current seats are currently occupied by Mr. Stridiron, Ms. Carol Maida, and Dr. Henderson. And that concludes my items, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. McCoy. We're now at the portion of the agenda for public discussion on non-agenda items. Please refer to the procedure sheet, and the timer is up there. Our first speaker is Ms. Melissa Clark Dawson.
Good evening. My name is Melissa Clark Dawson, and I'm a parent in the Newburgh Enlarged CD School District. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. I'm here to discuss the dire need to expand access to early childhood education for 3-year-old children residing in our school district. Currently, 3-year-olds who turn 4 after December 1st of the school year are denied access to early childhood education through the NECSD's UPK program. These same 3-year-olds are denied a second time when prohibited from enrolling in the NECSD's kindergarten program the following school year, since they will not be 5 years old by the December 1st cutoff date. This double denial gives a devastating blow to these 3-year-olds' educational future. It delays their entry into proven evidence-based learning programs and propagates the misconception that these children are just slow, when in fact they are just exhibiting the negative effects of their delayed introduction to early childhood education. In other words, their peers got a jump start and they didn't. Let us dispel the erroneous rhetoric that our children lack some attribute for success, when the reality is that their educational opportunities were denied or blocked before they got out of the gate. High rates of grade retention, remedial education, and low graduation rates are up against these little ones before they begin their educational journey because they were denied access to high-quality early childhood education. 1/2 of the achievement gap is already established before students enter kindergarten. Our teachers are educational professionals, not miracle workers. Our children are intelligent, teachable, and ready to learn. We should do the right thing and grant them access to the high-quality early childhood education they rightfully deserve. Social, health, and criminal justice issues already exist in our communities, not to mention the widening educational gaps due to COVID. Why add delayed access to early childhood education to the mix? Now, how do we fix this? Let us use a two-pronged approach to give 3-year-olds access to NECSD's UPK program. First, I'm asking the NECSD BOE to change the cutoff date from December 1st to December 31st for enrollment in the NECSD existing UPK program. And second, I'm requesting that our BOE institute a UPK program that targets 3-year-olds in our school district. Let our children benefit from accessing the high-quality early childhood education offered by the NECSD. As a mom, I can speak firsthand to the safety, efficacy, and excellent teachers in the NECSD UPK program who helped me and my family to nurture my son's love of learning at an early age, and consequently, he continues to thrive in his academic pursuits. All 3-year-olds, including my daughter, deserve to have a similar positive learning experience, but first they need to be granted access. According to the 2020 census, about 6% or 5,319 children under the age of 5-year-olds reside in our school district. The need to access early childhood education is undeniable, and I believe that our BOE is up to the task to grant our children access to lifetime success. According to the State Department of Education's 2021 Universal Pre-K Expansion Grant, research shows that children who participate in high-quality early education programs are far more likely to read at grade level, have significant increases in math and reading performance by the 2nd grade, have positive life outcomes, graduate from high school. Also, the state DOE indicates that investing in high-quality pre-K programs narrows the achievement gap between adequately served and underserved youth and provides benefits to children and taxpayers that outweigh their cost. In conclusion, our children deserve the best, and it is our responsibility as a school district to reduce the educational gaps among our children, promote educational parity, improve student performance, and take steps to continuously improve our school district. I beseech the NECSD BOE to remove the barriers to accessing early childhood education for 3-year-olds in our school district by changing the cutoff date to December 31st for the existing UPK program and instituting a UPK program that targets 3-year-olds so that they are not left behind. If granted access to early childhood education, our 3-year-olds will have increased confidence in school.
Ms. Clark
Equitable
Dawson,
access to education.
your time is up. I'm sorry.
I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Our next speaker is Mr. Ray Harvey.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Can you hear me? Yes. Good evening. There's a couple of things I want to go over with the Board of Ed and the folks that are sitting in front of me. Signing up for this meeting is a process. That's number one. That needs to be looked at, needs to be changed, and getting this information to the community. Because I look around and I don't see that many community members here at this meeting. And I thought we was here for the community, not just to show up, all right? And I understand the board meeting and all of that, but we need the community voices to be heard. With the process of the new superintendent, I think the community was left out. I know I was left out. So it's a lot of work. You doing work, but it's a lot more to be done when we're talking about the community outside of these walls. Second, I think one of the things we talked about this new trade school that we're building. I think the vice president of the board, Mr. Howard, said last week about reaching out, the contract, reaching out to the women and minorities in this community so that we're not left out again. It's going to be a lot of great jobs that the young men and women in this community needs. They can do OJT, you know, in the military, it's on-job training. They don't have to be from a union. They can do that. We can do that if the language in the contract is wrote that way. Or we ask, before we give out these contracts, that they look at hiring from within City of Newburgh. Because most of the folks that live in the City of Newburgh went to that school. So people like me, that look like me, should be on that job site, you know, when that starts. I met with Senator Jacob today. I got a meeting tomorrow with Chuck Schuman, because they want to talk about preventing gun violence, and we all want to stop that. So how you do that? By giving these young men and women jobs, not just programs. We done ran enough programs. I'm tired of programs. We need to give them jobs so they can get up, go to work, feel good about themselves, be able to take care of their family. And we can do that with that project, that $300 million, whatever it is, project that we're looking at. That is right here that, you know, because every time we go talk to people, oh, they can't show up because they ain't got transportation. Well, they won't need transportation. They can walk. So if we serious about taking care of our own, right, then let's get serious. And let's start by talking to the community, what the community needs are. And I know you can say you did this, you did, but that's not enough. That's not enough. Walk the streets with me. Walk the street with Bishop Woody, because I see him out there. Walk the street with these people that walk the street. You know, so that you can talk to these folks and see what their needs are. And then let's come together as a community and let's work together to make our community better. You know, because that's what we want to do. You know, you can't stop gun violence by having a program, because that's gone. We don't try that. That doesn't work. So let's get some jobs, some serious jobs, that they can feed their families and they can feel better about themselves every day. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else in the audience that would like to speak on non-agenda items? Okay, thank you. We're going to move on to executive session again. Be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby recesses into executive session for the following purpose: employment history of particular individuals, matters leading to the employment of particular individuals, and to obtain advice from legal counsel. I'd like to entertain a motion, please. Roll call.
Ms. Mineo?
Yes.
Mr. Stridiron?
They're calling on you.
Mr. Stridiron?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Ms. Burton? Ms. Green? Mr. Howard? Mr. Levenstein? Ms. Maida?
We may be doing business when we return. Adjourn this meeting, please.
Second.
Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Stridiron?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Ms. Burton?
Yes.
Ms. Green? Mr. Howard? Mr. Levenstein? Ms. Maida? Ms. Mineo?
Yes. Thank you.